Cursed energy, the lifeblood of Jujutsu society. The entire power system of Jujutsu Kaisen relies on the presence of this energy. However, at the same time, it can also thrive off the absence of cursed energy as well. In a world where fighting is done through cursed techniques and even the average sorcerer is capable of increasing their physical aptitude with cursed energy refinement, it's obvious how integral it is to each and every sorcerer. Of course though, cruelty will rear its head on the majority of the population, leaving them with minimal cursed energy, not even enough to visualize cursed spirits. As a third option, however, sometimes by sacrificing something valuable at birth, one can be granted a massive power boost in a certain aspect. This exchange unfortunately tends to favor the universe, as most of these deals result in lower cursed energy output or in extreme cases actually crippling circumstances to the body. Known as heavenly restriction, it has also been known to produce even grander phenomena across the planet. Rumors of beings born with zero cursed energy. In exchange, the human is maximized to their fullest potential, a heightened state of existence unreachable by those in touch with sorcery. Given both cases, what can truly be considered the better option? An access to supernatural abilities and unnatural senses through cursed energy? Or bolstering the five senses to their peak, obtaining a body of unimaginable durability and strength with the extinguishing of cursed energy? Representing the peak of cursed energy is going to be Yuta Okkotsu, the cursed child and vessel for the pseudo-queen of curses, Rika. Thanks to his heritage, Yuta is blessed with near infinite cursed energy, reflected in his superiority in sorcery and battle, especially compared to other students that are years his senior. The pillar of what cursed energy control can truly achieve, Yuta Okkotsu will today be facing his polar opposite. If one end of the extreme is a boundless amount of cursed energy, it only makes sense the antithesis would be absolute zero. As such, Yuta's opponent today will be the invisible man with no cursed energy, Toji Fushiguro. Enchained in one of the most unique heavenly restrictions the earth has ever known, a complete separation from cursed energy entirely, Toji Fushiguro single-handedly is capable of the same destructive features a special grade sorcerer would be, despite lacking all the supernatural abilities that come with them. On the battlefield with all limits removed, equal footing, and death being the only escape, what philosophy conquers all? Both Toji and Yuta will be scaled to measure power level and allow us to get a full grasp of what exactly each of them is capable of. To reach our final conclusion, these characters' abilities will need to accurately stack up against each other, with any and all loopholes being considered, almost as if to simulate a real battle between the two. Now, I spent a lot of time covering Yuta in a previous video, so if you really didn't want to hear me blabber on about a lot of the same stuff, you're in luck today. I've got a special guest, and I'm gonna let him break this all down for you and give you a fresh perspective on the man, the myth, the legend himself, Yuta Okkotsu.
Yo, what's going on everyone? It's TheFakeWeeb here. Very honored to be a part of this collab with No Operator, another episode of his battle analysis series, and as you guys just heard, I will be breaking down one of the strongest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, otherwise known as Yuta Okkotsu. Rika! Yuta Okkotsu is a supporting character in the Jujutsu Kaisen series. He was first introduced in Volume 0 of the manga, which took place a year before Yuji came in. Despite being a supporting character, he has a huge influence in the story and is one of the second-year Jujutsu High students alongside Maki, Toge, and Panda. Yuta's strength is what separates him and all the other students from Jujutsu High because he's considered the level of a special grade sorcerer, the highest level in the Jujutsu sorcerer grading system, ranking him among the likes of Satoru Gojo, Suguru Geto, and Yuki Tsukumo. Yuta requires the full power of Rika Orimoto, a childhood friend who was cursed at death and was later evolved into a special grade vengeful cursed spirit. Rika was an unknown existence to everyone, especially to Jujutsu High, which was why Gojo and the higher-ups were very wary of her at first. In the final battle between her and Yuta versus Geto, she showcased to be one of the most powerfulest cursed spirits to ever exist, hence worthy given the moniker the Queen of Curses, paralleling to the most powerfulest cursed spirit in history, Ryomen Sukuna, who's given the title of being the king of all curses. So with Yuta and his own strengths alongside the ability to manifest Rika, just exactly how strong is Yuta Okkotsu? Well, to break down all his powers, we'll first go through his cursed energy level. Cursed energy is the power source used by sorcerers powers and curses that fuels their Jujutsu. The more cursed energy you have, the more Jujutsu you can use. It's also known that facing an opponent with a lot more cursed energy than you can typically result in your defeat, but it's not always the case, as we've seen some people with low cursed energy but very strong physically that they can adapt and beat their opponents who's got a lot more cursed energy than them. Yuji is a great example of this. However, the idea of having large amounts of cursed energy still does classify you as being very strong, and oh my, Yuta has an immense amount of cursed energy. So big that you can feel his presence at a distance. In chapter 139, Yuji, Naoya, and Choso felt Yuta's cursed energy all the way from a rooftop and described his cursed energy being more ominous than Satoru Gojo himself. Gojo is believed to have the most cursed energy than anyone in the series, an amount so large it enables Gojo to use his domain expansion multiple times in a day. Just think of that. Most sorcerers can't even use domain expansion at all, as it takes a lot of cursed energy. And the ones that can do domain expansions can most likely do it once in a day and then be in extreme fatigue after, as it depletes all your energy. So Yuta having similar amounts of cursed energy as Gojo is scary. Now, this doesn't mean anything if you can't control that large amount of cursed energy, but Yuta can. Initially, as someone who has only been studying Jujutsu for a year, Yuta was still learning the ropes on how to control his large amounts of cursed energy, but he quickly learned how to channel some of it into his ring and katana, but would often rely on Rika's full power rather than finally controlling it on his own. Until a year later, when he returns to the story after the Shibuya incident arc, Yuta has now gotten much greater control over his massive amounts of cursed energy. He made up for his lack of physical strength by putting his entire body and weapon with constant flows of cursed energy while in battle. This state increased his strength and speed tremendously and made the opponents unable to read his cursed energy flow. Additionally, his reinforced physical skills are improved to such a degree that he can contend with Yuji Itadori's natural physical prowess. In chapter 140 and 141, it shows that he can match Yuji's blistering speed while carrying a drawn katana. He even threw back the car that Yuji threw, which is insane as he's not only got more cursed energy, but he's technically on par, if not greater, than Yuji's physical prowess. Kind of unfair, don't you think? Having an immense amount of cursed energy that can reinforce your body to a much greater physical prowess? It's like he's Yuji's strength plus having the balanced amounts of cursed energy like Gojo. He's actually a long distance relative to Gojo, so that's why his cursed energy is so vast. Yuta is also an excellent swordsman. After vigorous training with Maki, a cursed tool user, and holding his own against Suguru Geto, who's especially skilled in close combat, he's comfortably able to use a sword as his main fighting weapon and learn to be more proficient with it over the past year. In chapter 137, he defeated a large high-level cursed spirit with a diving stab so powerful it cracked at the ground beneath the curse. From what we've seen so far, his main fighting style will always be swordplay. During the final battle with Geto in Volume 0, we also learned that Yuta was able to copy cursed techniques as he copied Inumaki's cursed speech. So far, there's little known about the full scope of his copying ability, besides his cursed speech copy with the help of the Inumaki family speakerphone, and Kenjaku talking about it with Gojo in Shibuya. Other than that, we haven't seen him used it ever since. Of course, that will soon change as he's headed to the Culling Game Zone, so hopefully we'll finally get to see how it's used and the conditions that govern it. I mean, just imagine if he can use Gojo's Limitless or copy Sukuna's slashing ability, which are both overwhelmingly powerful. It just goes to add Yuta's strength to a much higher degree. To top it all off, Yuta is one of the few sorcerers in the world that can use reverse curse technique. Reverse curse technique is a special type of curse technique that takes cursed energy and reverses it into positive energy. It is a very complex technique and is mainly used to heal human bodies. During the final battle against Geto in Volume 0, Yuta used reverse curse technique on Maki, Toge, and Panda to heal their wounds they've suffered from Geto. He uses it again in the current timeline, but this time, he literally uses reverse curse technique to essentially bring someone back from the dead. as he healed Yuji's heart, which returned him from death. To put it in perspective, if he ever gets injured during a fight, he can quickly use reverse curse technique on himself to heal and get back on the battlefield. After breaking down his strengths and going through all his abilities, it's definitely fair to say that Yuta is one of the strongest characters in Jujutsu Kaisen, but it's not just Yuta alone that makes him so dangerous in battle, but with the power to also manifest Rika, who I mentioned earlier to be one of the strongest curses in the Jujutsu Kaisen world, their bond for love and chemistry with each other can make these two a non-stoppable force. Yuta alone can take out the strengths of Yuji or anyone stronger if he was trying hard by himself. Now adding the ability to manifest Rika during battle just increases Yuta's overall strength, making him leagues above most Jujutsu Kaisen characters. In Volume 0, we witnessed the strengths of both Yuta and Rika tag teaming on Geto. Now remember, Geto is a special grade sorcerer. He is classified as the same rank as Satoru Gojo, which should give you an idea of just how strong Geto really was. But of course, the battle ended with Yuta and Rika's victory, as Yuta was able to keep up with Geto's close quarter combat skills, and Rika was able to defend his ultimate attack, Maximum Uzumaki. Bearing in mind that Yuta in his first year was able to defeat a special grade sorcerer while still learning the ropes of Jujutsu, just shows the insane amount of potential Yuta has, as in the current timeline, almost 2 years after the events of Volume 0, we now see Yuta having a greater degree of control over manifesting Rika by being able to partially form the spirit. His growth doesn't stop there. Yuta will continue to get stronger and stronger as time goes on. Gojo even mentioned to himself that one day Yuta will surpass him and become the strongest Jujutsu sorcerer.
そうか。
Originally known as Toji Zeni, Toji Fushiguro, despite being born with no sorcery talent, has managed to carve a brutal reputation for himself in the world of Jujutsu society. His infamy carried weight only second in line to Satoru Gojo, earning the title Sorcerer Killer. Having no access to cursed energy whatsoever has never stopped Toji from winning a battle against a sorcerer. The kind of assassin who doesn't discriminate against work. At least as long as it pays well, Toji carries an aura of crippling fear around him. Anyone naive enough to cross his path is immediately smothered beneath his presence at a mere glance. Toji wears his strength in the air around him, a true apex predator. As a mercenary, Toji utilizes his abilities to make every attack count, never wasting a movement. Without any supernatural powers to rely on in battle, Toji resorts to pure bloodlust and physical prowess to achieve his kills. Every single swing of his curse tool leads with murderous intentions. With each step that is taken and every movement Toji makes, he intends to end his opponent in as few strikes as possible. Being at a disadvantage against the complexity and limitations of most curse techniques, Toji has learned to become merciless, unafraid to commit heinous acts the average sorcerer wouldn't dare, willing to use something like a firearm for a quick uncontested kill, or stab a target in the back once they're worn down and exhausted. Toji's malice also stems from his upbringing in the Zenin clan. Although he can remove the last name, Toji's time spent there will permanently be marked by the scar on his mouth, which he got after being tossed in the Zenin discipline pit. An outcast, scorned because of his heavenly restriction, this only served to freeze Toji's heart and lay out the path for a cold-blooded murderer to walk. Isolated since before he could even remember, one thing Toji knows inside and out is himself. A man that knows all of his own weaknesses, understands his strengths a hell of a lot more. A confidence that is worn without fail, even in the face of death itself. Toji's strengths consist mostly of the blessings he has received from his heavenly restriction, maintaining a heightened level of all 5 senses. Toji has also excessively trained his already powerful, durable physical body. One of the most muscular characters in the series, Toji has honed every aspect of his humanity to its maximum level. In his prime, at least according to Megami's memory, Toji is able to reach a level of power and speed even higher than Three Fingers Sukuna. Even when up against the younger Satoru Gojo, Toji is able to completely outspeed the limitless user effortlessly. Despite claiming to be rusty, not only are his physical assets impeccable, the absence of cursed energy make it nigh impossible to read Toji's movements. His speed is already disorienting enough, but the added feature of being incognito makes Toji a confusing opponent to deal with in physical combat. His extreme speeds, accompanied by the one-hit kills, result in Toji becoming an absolute monster in battle, regardless of whatever curse technique he may find himself up against. Even able to remove himself from the danger of point-blank attacks with minimal to no scratches whatsoever. One false move could truly spell the end of any opponent, but this is exactly how Toji likes it. As he's learned from personal experience, the less time a sorcerer is given to plot or use their technique, the better. Which brings us to the real danger that lies beneath all of Toji's combat prowess and physical superiority. What makes Toji a true and terrifying monster is his intelligence. Throughout the Star Plasma Vessel arc, Toji's able to manipulate the entire situation behind the scenes. Not only does he plan the time limit on the bounty for Riko, Toji also deceives them into a sense of security once they reach Jujutsu High's barrier, being the first and only person in the world to find an actual winning strategy to kill Satoru Gojo. Using the underground knowledge he has gained from the Zenin clan, even in the small scuffle with Geto, Toji displays just how much of an understanding he has of sorcery. Even with no way to train in the art himself, he familiarized himself completely with this in order to create a larger advantage between him and his targets. Knowledgeable enough to immediately deduce a curse's innate technique in seconds with pure accuracy, as well as confidently challenge the conditions without full knowledge of these consequences. It also seems like Toji does retain some ability to incorporate binding vows, which may result in increased invisibility in regards to anticipation of his movements, or just an agility / power boost in general. Whether or not Toji does have the ability to do this, or even if he was just bluffing, it still shows the amount of grasp he has on the world of Jujutsu in order to give him a higher chance of victory. Toji is also able to use his heightened senses to see curses, even exert his overwhelming influence upon lesser grade spirits, creating a master-slave relationship with a cursed spirit that is able to act as a portable storage for multiple weapons or distractions that Toji can summon up into battle. Being able to swap back and forth between these items in a moment's notice, this sleight of hand allows Toji to always have the appropriate tool for any scenario. He's even been shown to store massive crowd control options, such as a swarm of low-grade fly-hit curses to blind the enemy and cloud his position. While obviously being a very aggressive fighter, the cursed tools in Toji's position present him with a myriad of defense options as well. An example of this can be noted when Geto attempts to steal the inventory curse in his fight with Toji. Toji was able to abuse the property of the inverted spear of heaven to cancel out Geto's curse technique, while at the same time as Toji activates his curse EMP, he's able to bring out his sword and land finishing blows on both Geto and the cursed spirit. Despite every single battle in Jujutsu Kaisen so far being almost completely fueled with the existence of cursed energy, Toji Fushiguro is a complete contradiction to the entire formula of power the series has laid out so far. With his intellect, Toji's capable of outsmarting groups of people at a time, inside and outside of battle. His merciless nature and lack of morals in general allow for not only the most diabolical of tactics, but also insidious battle strategies with underhanded actions. The absolute superiority Toji wields over most in strength, cunning, and ability creates fear in those who just can't seem to understand the level of power that Toji grazes. The sorcerer of boundless cursed energy, up against the invisible sorcerer killer with absolutely no cursed energy at all. In order to appropriately assess this battle in a way that would be accurate to the series, the fight will be reduced to questions that, depending on the outcomes of their answers, will decide the result. To start, as for both characters, they each present an extensive array of physical feats. Despite Yuta's small size, like TheFakeWeeb mentioned, he's able to make up for this with his cursed energy reserves. With Yuta being able to throw back a car at Yuji, it shows that he would be able to handle Toji's monstrous attacks, as well as offer a decent back and forth in displays of physical prowess. Even with Yuta's ability to increase his strength and versatility in close combat, he cannot for a moment let down his guard against Toji. As specified previously, Toji specializes in making every single attack strike with the capability of being a kill shot, which means even though Yuta holds the ability to heal himself with reverse curse technique, with Toji's habit of one-hit KOs, it's not a risk Yuta can exactly take. Luckily, thanks to his expert swordsmanship, keeping up with Toji's dexterity shouldn't be an issue. As long as Yuta is able to maintain his mastery over his curse energy, he should remain durable and nimble enough to not get bullied around. Also, in close quarters, Yuta does hold an advantage that Toji doesn't. Yuta's ability to summon Rika presents presents him a myriad of opportunities in a battle of physical aptitude. As having a second body to launch attacks with, Toji may find it hard to land any attacks at all when he's constantly on the back foot. The Queen of Curses can relate to the sorcerer killer, at least in one way. She doesn't like to waste her attacks. In contrast, it's not a stretch to say that Toji would be able to use his enhanced speed to escape any close quarters trouble this duo may cause him. Perhaps he may not be fast enough to work around them both and land a very decisive hit, but he's definitely fast enough to keep himself out of harm's way from both Yuta and Rika if they do manage to back him into a corner. In Toji's battle with Gojo, he's shown to be able to speed around a battlefield in a moment's notice, and without cursed energy, his movements are completely unreadable. We've already seen in small instances between Yuji and Yuta just how much an unreadable opponent can trip a fighter up in the moment. Now Toji's advantage in this is while his sensory skills and dexterity don't rely on cursed energy, Yuta's most certainly do. This means two things. Not only does Toji's speed make him a very hard target, his attacks become that much harder to dodge or block if Yuta cannot properly match Toji's rhythm. Thankfully, having Rika as a bodyguard does give Yuta a second set of eyes to keep him safe from sneak attacks. This does, however, create a problem for Yuta in that his only win conditions lie beyond unconventional means. In Yuta's battle with Geto, he was really only able to gain an advantage once Geto matched him physically by resorting to an all or nothing final desperation move. One that most likely drains Yuta of most, if not all, of his cursed energy. And since, as we've just discussed, close combat does create a stalemate of sorts between the two, one needs to assess what tools Yuta may have to possibly gain an advantage over Toji in a long-range battle. Reason being, as Toji has demonstrated time and time again, a special grade curse spirit like Rita is completely vulnerable to Toji's rampages, previously being able to absolutely demolish both of Geto's highest level curses in an instant, as well as break through Dagon's entire domain within minutes of being presented with an appropriate opportunity. Yuta's best interest is to keep Toji away from him. Thankfully though, a special grade like Yuta can rely on his stolen curse techniques. Specifically, Yuta's recreation of the Inomaki curse speech technique presents him with a multitude of options for defense as well as offense against Toji. Using curse speech, Yuta would be able to blow Toji far away. Perhaps Yuta could even crush him under the weight of the spell, or cause him to twist or contort. The possibilities are endless. The only problem is that it's uncertain how much power the technique would really have over a freak of nature like Toji. Considering it was shown in Yuta's battle with Geto that he isn't the best at using the technique either, despite a whole year going by, it's kind of a stretch to say that he'd be able to use it a large number of times or produce a speech of large enough power to actually finish Toji off in one go. In all honesty, Yuta's best shot at using the technique to his advantage would be using it to paralyze Toji long enough that Yuta would be able to do some significant damage to him. Depending on how much Yuta could get away with and how long Toji remains frozen, Yuta could create a win condition here. However, as a reminder to everyone, part of what makes Toji such a dangerous force is his knowledge of sorcery. It's absolutely not out of the question to say Toji would know about the Inomaki curse speech ability. Regardless, Toji's primarily vulnerable to the very first attack he gets from it, as he wouldn't be able to see it coming from Yuta without prior knowledge Yuta has that ability. But if Yuta doesn't take this opportunity and instead uses it to play defense by either blasting Toji away or doing a smaller scale attack, the versatile assassin would immediately adapt to his situation without fail. With Toji also being such a special case, it's entirely possible there may be recoil also inflicted on Yuta from using the curse speech technique on him. A fully maximized human, despite holding no cursed energy, could still be considered a high level target to the curse technique. All things considered, this entire win condition relies on Toji being unable to react in time to the cursed speech, and him being completely caught by surprise. However, what is yet to be accounted for in this fight is one major factor in Toji's battle prowess: his inventory curse spirit. Now, not only does Toji hold a myriad of curse tools in order to aid him in gaining ground on Yuta in physical combat, such examples being the Chain of 1,000 Miles for long range, or the Flyhead Storm he can use to distract Yuta even further and hide amongst it. Even if we were to disregard all of these advantages, the main win condition that is presented by this comes from Toji's inverted Spear of Heaven. Now, with both characters being measured at their peak, it's only right to consider the inverted Spear of Heaven in these calculations. And thus, Toji does gain a passive defense to any and all copied cursed abilities that Yuta may be able to throw at him. This is why Yuta's cursed speech strategy would have needed to be employed sneakily. But considering Toji has been shown to swap out curse tools in a moment, it could be argued even if caught off guard, Toji could possibly react fast enough to extinguish the technique from hitting him. Much like the final battle between Gojo and Toji, Yuta's one hope is a last-ditch effort attack that Toji's defenses just can't handle. We've mentioned the exact attack previously in this analysis. Yuta's final attack made of the pure love between him and Rika. With all of his strength, energy, and merit placed into one final strike, Yuta certainly can amass the amount of energy needed to end Toji in one go. Now, a couple problems Yuta may face as he attempts this. With Rika's new form, her summoning and control by Yuta could possibly be considered a curse technique to some extent. If this is the case, Inverted Spear of Heaven would nullify Rika's summoning entirely. This would immediately disadvantage Yuta by removing most of his utility outside of physical combat. With Toji's extreme speed and disorienting movements, a large charged up attack wouldn't exactly be easy to pin him down with either. Gojo was only able to land Hollow Purple when Toji threw Inverted Spear of Heaven off course in an attack that left himself wide open, not anticipating such a powerful attack coming right for him. If Yuta launches this attack and misses, he'll be completely vulnerable and will most certainly lose the fight. This technique does seem to be a final resort, implying that Yuta will most likely be defenseless entirely after using this attack. As it stands, coupled with Inverted Spear of Heaven, a lot of the early advantages Toji's able to create present a lot more problems for Yuta than the other way around. Despite holding a massive amount of strength on his own, able to now properly use this potential as well since his training in Africa, Yuta's far from being pushed around or bullied by Toji. However, the win conditions that Yuta has available to him are very specific and always require Toji to be taken by surprise. The fact of the matter lies in the lack of weak points Toji has in general. Toji does indeed have many more chances to land a killing blow on Yuta, be that because of his hard to read movements or the benefit his inventory curse awards him in the battle. Toji's killing instinct also provides him a necessary edge in the battle that Yuta unfortunately does not share. By the time Yuta realizes he can't risk showing mercy and intends to end things, it may already be too late. Toji may have already created the conditions for his own win at that point. With Yuta's desperation move also being a toss-up, I think it's just more appropriate to close this case. If I were a betting man and I had to put my money on one of our fighters here after all of this introspection, truth of the matter is, it seems to be there's a lot more weight lying on one side of the scale, and I feel a lot more confident going with that side as a choice. That side having our friendly neighborhood sorcerer killer, Toji Fushiguro, as the winner. So with all that being said, the final question is, what do you think? I'm really excited to see what happens, especially when we get to see Yuta in the culling games. I want to see if my predictions are correct, or if maybe he's learned a couple other techniques or abilities that may turn the tables entirely in this scenario. Do you think I'm wrong? I'm sure a lot of you do. Are there any win conditions that I may have missed or may not have considered? Please let me know down in the comments, and of course we can duke it out for as long as you guys want in the free marketplace of ideas. Thank you so much for watching until the end of the video, and thank you again to TheFakeWeeb for dropping by and sharing some knowledge with us. I appreciate it. All of his links are going to be down in the description below. Definitely throw him a like, subscription, all of that stuff. But most of all, thank you to all the new people that liked and shared this content. Please feel free to subscribe. I appreciate you as much as possible. And follow me on Twitter if you want to stay up to date. Thank you so much, and I'll see you guys in the next one.